What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football Network here on YouTube. I am Nate Polvogt, and sitting next to me here is Mr. MIke Reedy, and we are here for Week 11 DFS main slate plays here on DFS Live. Guys, if you are tuning in, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Optimus Fantasy Football channel. We have content coming all week long. We have another show coming tonight. In fact, I am going to be live in about an hour and a half for a lead live Q&A to get you ready for week 11. But we're not here for that. We're here to give you the best DFS plays this week to win you some money. Mike, how are we doing here heading up to week 11?
Yeah, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. I feel like I've had a better fantasy season than this one in my life a few times anyways, right? Like a lot of injuries. Although people coming back this week, which makes me feel better.
Well, I got tanked in my home league. Like off the bat, I had Jordan Love and Tua and CMC. Those are my quarterbacks. I am now 2-8. Not excited about it, but you know, I've had a better season in DFS, and let's go ahead and get to that so we don't have to think about how bad our fantasy seasons have been. We're going to start with these week 11 main slate quarterbacks. Speaking of Jordan Love, Mike, I went with my high pick. I went a little bit on the lower end, mostly because I just don't like Lamar Jackson's matchup this week. I think this is going to be a tougher game for him.
That one.
Yeah, divisional against Pittsburgh. Guy's still the MVP. I just don't like him this week. I like Jordan Love a lot better. This Green Bay team is rolling. They're playing well. He's 7,000 right now on DraftKings. He is sitting right at 7,700 on FanDuel. They're up against Chicago, and this has been a better defense. But again, this is a divisional game. Chicago, they're in transition here. Shane Waldron's gone. Matt Eberflus knows he's probably on his way out. I think this is going to be a different game for that defense. I think Jordan Love's going to play really well this week.
I hope so, because I have him in redraft in multiple places. I like the way he spreads the ball around. They are relatively tough on quarterbacks, that Bears defense, but if somebody can overcome it, Jordan Love's one of those guys that can overcome it because of how they spread the ball around. It's not a bad play, mostly because I think the Bears team is starting to fall apart right before our eyes. And
that's part of it for me. Looking at the guys above him, the only two with salaries higher right now are Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Kansas City and Buffalo, that's going to be a really tough matchup for Allen, even though it's at home. And again, with Jackson, I can't trust it. So, but I think I actually like my mid pick better here. Jared Goff.
Pittsburgh shut down Daniels last week. I mean, they're a very good defense.
Well, and it's not just that their line's good. Their defensive ends are good. Their linebacker core is good. Their secondary is good too. So it just creates tons of problems for this team.
Better as well. A lot better, by the way.
Yeah. Jared Goff, 6,300 on DraftKings, $8,300 on FanDuel, but they're up against Jacksonville. He's kind of struggled in Jared Goff standards this last couple of weeks. This is a get right week for him. Jacksonville's awful. And that's just kind of the end of the analysis on that one for me.
Goff has multiple touchdowns in 6 of the last 7 games too. Jaguars give up the 3rd most fantasy points opposing teams' quarterbacks, right? So, Goff's a good play this week. The fear you could have is if they run in touchdowns, which they could do against the Jags. But I think you're more likely just to see an awful lot of touchdowns scored by the Lions this week.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. And we'll talk about a nice little stacking option here when we get to wide receivers. Now, Jameis Winston, my low pick. This is simple. 5,500 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel. This is a revenge narrative pick for me, I guess. Jameis Winston against his former New Orleans team that lost their head coach. Derek Carr.
Defense was happy to leave though in the end. Winston, I couldn't believe they never gave Winston a shot there, by the way. But
me either.
As we've talked about him a gazillion times, he's going to throw the ball. He's going to throw the ball into tight spots. You're going to see like Cedric Tillman score another touchdown. Mm-hmm. What have they been throwing it like 40 something times a game? I mean, you get like all 3 wide receivers are getting 9, 10, 11 targets each game. So it's pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, and with volume and at that low price, you can do some other cool things in your lineup, like get CMC in there or something fun like that. Now, Mike, let's move over
I
to
like
the running backs here. These are yours, and I love them. We're gonna start with the high pick, Devon A-Chain, who my brother-in-law was like Akhani. Is that how you say his name? I'm like, dude, you're one in our home. You don't know your best players.
I
No,
don't know if I ever pronounce his name right because I always say a chain, and I'm not sure if it's a Chan or a chain
you're closer
myself.
than my
But
brother-in-law.
but the Raiders give up the sixth most fantasy points to running backs. Last week, um, he had a tough matchup last week, and he only scored what 7.8 fantasy points or something like that. He's on the field for roughly 70% of the snaps. I know they have a lot of running backs with the Dolphins, but this is the guy who gets the touches and the snaps. It's Devin
Right.
Achane, right?
Yep.
Every single week, a running back has scored double-digit fantasy points against the Raiders every week. So this week it's going to be him.
I mean, pretty simple logic. He's RB10 in fantasy and PPR formats right now. I I think he's probably the best high level pick you can get this week. Now your mid pick here, Kareem Hunt, 6,700 on DraftKings. I love this one. 8,000 on FanDuel. Volume hog. He's a volume hog.
He's a volume hog. He has over 20 touches in 5 straight games. Right, and the Bills give up the second most fantasy points opposing teams' running backs. Between the volume and the fact that the Bills just don't defend the position well, right? He's easily going to exceed 10 fantasy points again this week. I probably looking
Oh,
at a
guaranteed.
20 fantasy point week for Kareem Hunt, right? Like he's kind of a no-brainer play for me. He's chalk. I think he's in every single DFS lineup I've set up so far.
Yeah, and he should be. Again, like just the level of volume he's seeing against Tampa Bay, 27 touches in the backfield. Last week, 10 targets against Denver. He's going to get the volume one way or another. At 6,700, that's a good value. Again, a player who's going to allow you to pay up other places. Same with your low pick. David Montgomery of the Lions, $6,500 on DraftKings, $8,100 on FanDuel. It's Jacksonville.
So it's Jacksonville, and the Jags give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing teams running back. But it's also Montgomery. He's had
Right.
11 or more fantasy points in 8 out of 9 games. And in that one game, he didn't break the double-digit barrier. He got hurt, and they kind of just sat him a bunch of the game, and then they plug him back in and pull him back out. But he had got hurt early in that game, and I think they were just trying to make sure he was okay. So, Monty he's going to get you an easy 15 fantasy points this week, more than likely against the Jags. 6,500 on DraftKings, 8,100 on FanDuel. He's more expensive, I think, on FanDuel, but he's priced relatively right. There's some lower price guys like I like but don't love, like Audric Estime. So I'd rather pay up here and pay down in a couple of other spots. That's all.
I know everybody's excited about Audric Estime and Javonte Williams is dead, and he might be, he probably is, but Sean Payton still loves Jaleel McLaughlin, and Bo Nix is mobile, and Audric Estime 14 carries, 53 yards doesn't exactly knock your socks off. So, I mean, you love the volume, but you got to see what he's going to do with it in the future. Is kind of where I'm at with him.
It's a tough matchup this week. And I mean, if he was guaranteed 80% of the running back touches, I'd say play him. But
sure,
I think it's a 3-headed running back by committee. He may be chalky in DFS, by the way, because his price is so low and he's predicted to get more touches. We'll see.
Sure. We'll see. We got some comments here in the chat I want to get to real quick here. We've got Aaron Hudson with a quick question for us. In PPR, he's got Laporta out this week. Would you rather pick up Dawson Knox versus Kansas City? Now, Dalton Kincaid is looking like he's going to be out. Pat Freiermuth against the Ravens. Or he could pick up a guy like Will Dissly, Taysom Hill, AJ Barner, Dalton Schultz, TJ Conklin, or Tyler Conklin or Sam Laporta backup, which would be Josh Wright, I believe. Off the top, I can't remember. Brock Wright. I'm sorry, Brock Wright.
Yeah.
I'd probably go Dawson Knox against Kansas City. I bet you he gets a touchdown this week.
He's somebody we're going to talk about as a low price tight end this week. Kansas City gives up an awful lot of fantasy points to tight ends. Dawson Knox is somebody I'd probably be willing to plug in there. Fryermuth's
Yeah.
not a bad one either against the Ravens. I like Taysom Hill. We'll talk about him a little bit too and why.
Yeah.
Also,
Well, Taysom Hill's always an interesting play. I just think for what this guy's going for, probably I would go Knox, but Freiermuth is a good play too.
I would
Taysom Hill.
matchup wise, I would go Knox. The
Yeah.
wide receivers are all dinged up there except for Shakur, right? Dalton Kincaid's
Yeah.
out. Knox is somebody Allen has a relationship with, right? Chemistry with. So the volume's going to be there probably for Knox, Shakur, and Amari Cooper because that's all they have healthy.
This could be a Ray Davis game too. Just throw that out there.
Yeah, he's going to run more than catch, I would think.
Probably, but I mean, maybe 165-yard touchdown catch. Just
Again,
again. Casey Kasem chiming in here, my Thursday show co-host. Volume is king, and that's true. And we could use some volume on her article, The Wide Receiver 2 Radar. Guys, if you're watching, head over to optimusfantasy.com after that. Check it out. It is published and live right now on the site. Brad McCoy, 24. Would we trade Cooper Kupp for Neighbors and Calvin Ridley? He's already got Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp, and Olave at wide receiver. The return Neighbors and Ridley just on volume, I think I'd make this deal. I makes your wide receiver core considerably better.
I think it helps. I don't trust Ridley, but I trust Neighbors. I think I trust Neighbors more than Cup. So at least right now I do. Right, massive volume. After this week, we'll know more about whether or not Levis can keep passing the ball to Ridley. I'm happy with what I saw the past couple of weeks, but we'll see. It's not a big deal.
No.
You know, and with what you have, you need somebody. Everybody's hurt or not playing sometimes other than Jamar. So I would, and oh God, everybody's out. Make that deal so you can fill up your lineup. I would do it just for that.
Yeah, you kind of have to. We've got Jables over on YouTube. He says, I can't get away from the Jameis Tillman stack with Estime and Dennis Allen. It allows so much leeway for CMC, A-Chain, Hall, Monty at running back, Jennings, Pickens, Ridley at wide receiver. What are your thoughts, Mike?
I like this. I like doing things like this. I know it's daring, right? But I'm playing Tillman almost everywhere. As well. So
volume.
If you're paying down to roll the dice with somebody like Estime, I think it's worth it, or Dennis Allen, it's worth it, right? Because you could with CMC, Achan, Monty, those guys could all get 20 something fantasy points and pull you up to 150, 880 fantasy points on DFS this week. I really like Pickens, Jennings, and Ridley. I think is a good play this week too. I do want to see what happens, but the matchup's right. It looks like a good play this week. Let's put it that way.
Well, Dalton Del Don loves Juwan Jennings this week, so I guess I'm going to listen to you guys on that one. We've got also.
I like Pearsall and Debo a little more than Jennings.
Sure, but if Jennings has value, yeah. He also wants to know. Jables likes that tree decor behind you. He wants to kind of know where you got it. They've got a similar one in their hallway. We always love connecting with our viewers on that level. Yeah. That's awesome.
The Tree of Life. That's the Tree of Life. I actually bought it on Amazon.
That's where we get everything.
I'll tell you what, you ping me on Twitter. I'll send you the link.
Perfect. Making connections here. And Casey Kasem wants to make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. She says, we appreciate the support here at Optimus Fantasy, and we do. She is not kidding, guys. Please hit that subscribe button, like the show. One more question, and then we're going to move on to wide receivers, Mike. Trade offer here for Brandon W. He's going to give Brock Bowers, but he's going to get back David Montgomery and Jake Ferguson. He's got Hawkinson and Otten on his bench.
Do it.
Yeah, I would do it too. You don't need Brock Bowers. Cade Otten's been fantastic. Hawkinson's starting to ramp up, and you get David Montgomery back, and you can maybe move Ferguson for somebody else because he's droppable for me at this point.
Yeah, I would do it. Just get Monty. The running backs, especially ones like Monty who just gets double digits every single week, are going to be super valuable come playoff time.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, remember that time I got roasted on Reddit for saying that Jake Ferguson was droppable? Anyways,
here now too.
I don't think so. We're going to move on to our week 11 main slate wide receivers here. These are my guys this week here. First one, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Number one wide receiver in my heart, and I think he has a shot at being the wide receiver one this week against Jacksonville. Plain and simple, $8,000 on DraftKings. He is sitting at 9,200 on FanDuel. He's the highest priced wide receiver this week. I'm still playing him, just a little bit below Justin Jefferson, but still, I'm playing him.
Touchdown, 7 straight games, 27% target share. Matchups right against the Jaguars because they're just bad everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what I like to say in situations like this? Break out the sunglasses, put on the suntan lotion, because the sun god is gonna shine, baby.
I love it.
Shine.
Yeah, this is just a great week for him. It's a great week for this Detroit offense. But if we're going to be missing Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, not that Laporta was dinging him much anyway, but the chances of Laporta being involved and hurting his volume is nil. Now, my mid pick here, George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love how Russell Wilson is making these players relevant now all of a sudden. 7,000 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel. They're up against Baltimore. And I mean,
you know who gives up the most fantasy points to wide receivers?
It would be the Ravens. Division matchup. Pittsburgh can kind of exert their dominance in the AFC North with a win here. This is a big deal for this Pittsburgh team.
So Pickens has over 70 yards in each game with Wilson at quarterback, and he has 2 touchdowns. That's 3 games played. I actually wrote up Pickens. I wrote up Amon-Ra St. Brown. And when we were looking at inexpensive quarterbacks, I was kind of surprised you pivoted to Winston, who I like, and didn't have Nix or Wilson in there, right? Because those are 2 other low-cost guys. So, like, when we're talking about building those lineups with CMC, you have some really good options, low price at quarterback this week. Like, really good ones.
Really
Wilson
good.
And Pickens, like,
great stack.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really nice stack.
So nice.
Now, my low guy here, Khalil Shakir, he's $6,300 on DraftKings. He is $6,500 on FanDuel. I'm not stacking him with Josh Allen, but as we talked about earlier, given this situation, the same reason that we like Dawson Knox this week, I like Khalil Shakir this week. Now, it does look like Amari Cooper's going to play, but that's good for these wide receiver twos. So I love that he's going to be on the field. If he's still dinged up, they're not going to target him as much, but he's still drawing that coverage. Khalil Shakir is a guy who could be a top 5 wide receiver this week just because he's going to see volume against Kansas City.
Yeah, I like him this week. I have him in a few redraft leagues.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing everywhere. I have him. I like him a lot this week too. Good call.
Yep, just kind of a no-brainer for me, I think, given the situation and the cost. Now we're going to move on to these tight ends, which not a lot of options here. But I love the ones you picked. George Kittle, we're starting off high. I love George Kittle.
He's really expensive, but he's the number 1 tight end in fantasy. Against the Seahawks in week 6, he had 6 targets, which he turned into 5 receptions, 58 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I know they have a lot of options to pass the ball to right now, but Purdy's slinging it. And this game is a 48-point over-under, second highest on the slate. So, last time I think the score was 36-28 or something like that. I think we're going to see a shootout here. So I think there's going to be some volume for everybody. And with Kittle, you have to watch it. I know he was a little bit dinged up in practice this week, so you want to make sure he's healthy and good to go. But yeah, if you want a high price tight end that's going to return value, George Kittle.
I mean, on touchdowns alone, he only has 3 games this season without one.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
he's
2 of those came in the first 3 weeks. So even if last week, 4 targets, 3 catches, a touchdown, 14 fantasy points. All he needs to do is get in the end zone, and that's more likely than not. Maybe he gets in twice if this is a shootout. I don't hate that. Taysom Hill, the fullback, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, Who knows what the hell else he could
In
play?
my write up for him, I called him. He's really a fullback playing that we have eligible as a tight end. But
Yeah.
the only healthy running back for the Saints right now is Alvin Kamara again, right? So that means Taysom Hill's going to be the guy splitting some time with him out of the backfield. He has over 50 yards in each of the past 2 games. He's going to catch some passes as well in the red zone. He is the goal line back also, right? So for 4,500 on DraftKings, 6,400 on FanDuel, right? He's really priced right with
Yes.
his relatively high floor, and Hill always has a super high ceiling. But with all those other running backs hurt and wide receivers are hurt too, right? Plug him in. He's gonna
Yep.
be on the field, and that means a lot.
Well, he's 4,500 on DraftKings, 6,400 on FanDuel. That you're saving a lot of money, even at a position that doesn't generally cost you a lot. But you can save $1,000 more in salary by going to your low pick here, Dawson Knox of the Buffalo Bills.
Again, another team where almost everybody's hurt, right? So we're back down to Dawson Knox, who used to be the starting tight end for the Bills, right? I was originally I'd written up Dalton Kincaid, and he's out due to his knee injury, which means Knox is going to start. The Chiefs struggle to contain tight ends. They're not good at it, right? They give up, I think, the second most points to tight ends.
Mhm.
Factor in that, the only real healthy pass catchers are Amari Cooper, who's kind of dinged up,
Yep.
Shakur, and Knox, right? So there's going to be some volume there for him since they're shorthanded. 3,500 on DraftKings, 5,100 on FanDuel, and last week I forget what he had, but he had like 3 catches for 50 yards or something like that too, with Kincaid dinged up then. So
Yep.
we've seen him be utilized pretty well in the past. I know he's a little older now, but I think Allen's going to throw him some passes this week.
Oh, I think so too. Like we talked about earlier, probably a touchdown this week would be my guess. Now, the teams who are going to try and stop that from happening, not in this game. We want nothing to do with the Chiefs defense in this matchup. But our week 11 main slate DSTs, we'll start with the high one, Detroit. I think we've already talked this one to death. They're playing Jacksonville. Mac Jones is the quarterback. Travis Etienne's probably hurt. Christian Kirk is out for the season. Evan Ingram is dinged up. They've got Brian Thomas Jr., who you don't want to start in fantasy right now because that just sounds like a terrible idea. They're $3,800 on DraftKings, $5,100 on FanDuel. And again, they're up against Jacksonville, so you're targeting the opponent. The mid-level, though, New Orleans, 3,300. This is because they're playing a guy I recommended earlier in Jameis Winston. As much as I love his upside, I also know that this defense could just feast on takeaways with this Cleveland offense.
He is going to throw an interception or 3, right? Like I mean, it's just how it is.
That's what I'm banking on here. Now, on the low end, the New York Jets, $2,800 on DraftKings, $4,200 on FanDuel. Anthony Richardson is back for Indianapolis, and that is who the Jets are playing. This is 3 interceptions this week.
Captain inaccuracy. He's at it again. Yep. Yeah, I can see 3 interceptions. They defend the pass really well, and he doesn't pass very well. Yeah, it's.
Yep.
I'm shocked that they're starting him again, but that's a discussion for another day. I know the fantasy community thinks it's the right thing to do. Guess what? Often we're wrong when we think that, and I think we're wrong.
What? Is that why we can't get GM jobs?
Yeah, I think so. I think this kid's just going to get destroyed, and you're ruining him. But that's just me.
Oh, he is absolutely good. He has a lot to learn, but there's nothing we can really do about that. This is up to Shane Steichen, and I'm going to guess it's probably more Jim Irsay than anything else. It would be, I think, everyone's guess. Yeah. We've got a couple more questions here before we get you guys out of here. We're going to start with Brad McCoy 24 on YouTube. Should he start Burrow versus the Chargers or Bo Nix against Atlanta? It's got the Burrow Chase stack. His opponent has Hurts. You can't sit Burrow, I don't think. He's starting to heat up.
Burrow. I like Bo Nix, by the way, as well. And they're both top 10 quarterbacks this season. I know people like Bo Nix. Yeah, he's top. He's QB9 on the season. So neither's a bad option, but I mean, Burrow's upside's a lot higher than Bo Nix's
A
upside.
lot higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could Nix outscore him this week? Sure. It
Maybe.
absolutely could happen, but it's a very less likely outcome. We've got Jables with another question here. Full PPR sit one between Ridley, Hopkins, and Tillman.
Sit Hopkins.
Read my mind. He also wanted to
back.
try.
Juju's back this week too, which gives you another reason to sit Hopkins. We don't know how this is going to play out.
No clue. Brad McCoy, he's weighing in here, Jables. Come on, man. You can't sit Burrow. He's been on fire. Yeah, that's kind of
how
what
I feel about it too. Yeah.
Yep. Now, Jesus Zavala on YouTube. Should I trade Puka for Bijan? I'm thin at running back, but have good receivers. He's got DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase, and Jawan Jennings. I think that's a fair swap. I'd do it.
I think you're making out if somebody's willing to do that. And I like Puka, but Bijan is, a really high-end running back is hard to come by, right? So
if you could make that deal, I would make that deal. 100%. All right, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. Just a quick reminder here. In about an hour and 10 minutes, 15 minutes here. Actually, I'm not sure what time. Oh, an hour and 27 minutes. We will be live with the Friday Q&A to get you set for week 11. I will be joined this week by CH Herms. We'll be answering your questions starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If we miss you there, head on over to Reddit, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. Mike and I will be answering all of your start-sit questions right up until kickoff. It's a blast. And then, Mike, we'll be back for the Waiver Wire Show Tuesday. That time is incorrect, but hey, we'll go with it. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. Maybe we'll go with it. Who knows? We'll talk about it. But we will be back for week 12 to get you ready. One more question here in the chat. Brady68 wants to know, Miami, Denver, or New Orleans this week? Drop Chicago or the Chargers for one of them. Thanks. I'd go Denver in fantasy.
Yeah, I'd play Denver too. That's why I want out that through some. Denver's really good. They have a really good matchup this week. I actually wrote about them in a late slate article. They were the best option for the late slate, where the options of defense is bad. Too many good offenses in the late slate this week.
Well, Kirk Cousins is dinged up. That's a big reason why I really like Denver against Atlanta, because if they end up throwing Michael Penix in there, oh boy, that's going to get ugly real quick. We've got CIVD_23 on Twitch here. Trade Amon-Ra and Chubb for Pickens and Connor and half PPR. No, Amon-Ra's too valuable. Far too valuable.
When you say that, you mean you are giving away Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Chubb to get Pickens and Connor? I have to specify because one of my friends writes this up and he means the opposite every time.
I'm assuming that's what it means.
Meant too. Yeah.
But if you're getting Amon-Ra and Chubb back, then definitely make that trade. Yes. So yes, you were correct. So it is the way we read it. Yeah. Don't make that trade. Keep Amon-Ra and Chubb. CIVD_23. Oh, and then here, Jables, I forgot Denver was playing Atlanta. Don't know why I thought they were playing someone else. Yeah, I have the misfortune of living in Denver and being a Denver sports fan, so I do know who they play most of the time.
They're also one of the top fantasy defenses, right? So they just been producing. So that's another reason why I lean towards them.
Yep. CVD_23 says, thanks. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe over there on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. We are live 5 times a week. We've got DFS, Waiver Wire, late night shenanigans with Herms after AEW, of course, late night. We have all of the fun. Of course, the flagship show on Thursday, us here every Friday for you, the Waiver Wire show. On that note, we're going to get you out of here. Come back around here at 6 p.m. Eastern for live Q&A with me and Herms. For now, I'm Nate Polvogt. For Mike Reedy, good luck this week. Go win some money, and we'll see you next Friday.